it's an amazing journey, isn't it? To come from humble beginnings, and when you look back, you think that, you know, you have got something to contribute back to the community, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think personally, I feel like I owe it to the rest of the, you know, colleagues and rest of the businesses that we work with, to give back something that you've learned. I don't believe we work in a vacuum. I think to be a good corporate citizen, you contribute in so many different ways. Some contribute in money, some contribute like me, because we are business advisors. I do believe the business advice that we give is worth its weight in gold. So I think it's all about all of us playing a part, like you say. But yeah, on reflection, it's really amazing that you could be in a position where people can look up to you and the business that you've built in order to get ideas and advice on how to, you know, run businesses generally. Absolutely.
So I think you have opened up a conversation that we are going to continue on the piece that the misconceptions that you can only interact with the law when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I have spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs and startups, and they don't realize the importance of having to involve your lawyers from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ronald, I really want us to dig deeper and talk about this aggravating topic, misconceptions about the importance of law, because people always associate the law with criminals. And people always feel that lawyers, when people come to you, you are just so hungry to chop their money. They don't think about the benefit.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the fact that you've used the word aggravating, because every time I talk to people and I hear lawyers are expensive, it really triggers me, if I can say that. Because I think expense, first of all, is relative. It just depends on how you're viewing a certain function. And secondly, if I'm still on that issue of expense, I always ask the very same people who say lawyers expensive to say, okay, can you give me statistics of how many lawyers have you spoken with? What has been their pricing? And have you suggested in any way that you can't afford it? And have you suggested what you can actually afford?
Right.
And I think in those 4 points, I've actually sort of hinted at how startups can actually approach law firms.
Right.
So it's aggravating in the sense that the legal function or the law is actually treated, in my view, as a nuisance. You don't want to deal with lawyers until you have to.
Yeah.
And usually when you're dealing with lawyers, we call ourselves firefighters. You look for a lawyer when your house is burning. Yeah, not when you're building your house. You want to look for the lawyer when your house is burning. So I think, for me particularly, I think startups should really realize that a legal function should be present from the start.
Right.
When you're starting to do your things. The usual, journey that a startup takes is you're sleeping on your bed, you come up with a brilliant idea, you sort of work at it yourself, and then eventually you find, okay, I may have a scalable business here. And then you get onto it, you start building the business side of it. So
Right.
if it's a technology platform, you start building it, you look for people to help you, programming and the like. Once you have that, you have to now start thinking about the four corners of this. How am I, at the end of the heart of it, it's a business. How am I building a business? And in any business, there are critical functions. HR, whether you want to call it the leadership or the CEO, the senior partners, that's fine. You have your employees. And for me, I think the legal function is one of those pillars you can never ignore. And I'll give you an example that is really surprising in its simplicity. So we know here in the UK and in the West, particularly in the UK and Europe, that the GDPR is such a huge thing when it comes to data protection.
Right.
Back in the day, you could afford to scale your business by collecting people's information. You go around with a book. Can I use your details to do X, Y, Z, and Y, Z? And you think to yourself, I'm safe, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But now the astronomical penalties that you get for collecting information or even misuse of information could just drive any startup into the ground before you even start.
Absolutely.
Now, let's bring that even closer home. I've spoken with so many startups who, shockingly, don't even know that Zimbabwe now has a Data Protection Act. They don't know that in terms of the law, they are required either to employ a data protection officer or to have access to one And the data protection officer has to make sure that every time that data is transferred, either transferred, stored, or processed, they must be able to give a report to say, in terms of the law, what are we supposed to do with this? Now, for me, that's actually leads me to an aggravating point again, where, again, I come back to the thing that the law is treated as a nuisance. You don't want to read up on the legal function. You don't want to know what the legal function is all about.
Right.
Until you get in trouble. Not trouble as such, but sometimes you, in my experience, you often get founders coming to you when they're at that stage where someone has said, hey, I have a bag of money, can I invest in you?
Yeah.
And then the questions that those funders now start asking, you now realize, oh, okay, I'm still 6 months away from getting the money, because they want to know, how am I structured? How have I done my data protection? Do I have employment contracts in place? Do I employ anyone? And most of funders, you find that it's a collection of people who have all assisted in coming up with an idea.
Yeah.
So we always say to ourselves, oh, I've given you shareholding. Now the funders want to know, do you have a shareholders agreement?
Yeah.
How did you give up the shareholding? What does that mean? Who holds what? Who holds?
Yeah.
All those things are a legal function. So for me, it then becomes really aggravating, because you realize that should have been the first step that you've taken, rather than the last step.